I don't want to do it, but I know I have to do it every day. I've wanted to quit so many times. And maybe I've even said it out loud. On those principles. You've already compromised. That means you can do it again. That's what I want in my life, and that's what I'm gonna perform on, and I'm not compromising on. I have a crippling anxiety that I'm not good enough. I need to work so hard every day. I use that anxiety to improve every single day because I'm afraid I'm not good enough. It's a way of thinking, and I think a lot of people could benefit.
Untuk kembali dalam prestasi terbaik. Sepakan percuma di penghujung separuh masa pertama dari Paulo Josue. Ditampakkan sebelum masih ada permainan dan Sebastian Avanzini menggunakan peluang yang cukup baik. Hasil satu bola muntah dan aksi yang terkabul di dalam kawasan penalti. Dan Sebastian Avanzini menutup cerita di separuh masa pertama dengan jaringan yang cukup penting buat City.
Guys, hit the follow, subscribe button, share this with someone who would benefit from it, and help us grow. As the more we grow, the better the episodes will get. Thanks guys for helping us, and let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the Sculpted Podcast, guys. Today, we are here with Sebastian Avanzini. What a guest, guys. It's a crazy story. This is actually our second go over the recording. Unfortunately, we have some footage that was corrupted, but thankfully, Sebastian has willingly hopped on again for another shot. And I'm really, really keen to share Sebastian's story with you guys, get to know him some more, and bring the Sculpted Podcast to more people. So, Sebastian, if you could give us a quick introduction to who you are, that would be great.
Yeah, so I'm Sebastian, and I'm 28 years old. I live in Kuala Lumpur at the moment, and for a living, I am playing football.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we've got you on, because Sebastian, we want to know about your life and how you roll. So, to get started straight away, what we're going to do is quick fire questions. Now, we're going to get through these pretty quickly. What is your favorite football boot of all time?
Favorite football boot? Currently, I am saying Puma because I am playing in Puma. But like, if I should say, I have a few that I really like. Puma at the moment, and then actually before I used to play in Mizuno, and Mizuno is a really good boot, I must say.
I actually think Mizuno, I mean, they did have a bit of a period where a lot of people started wearing them because of Hulk, and now Sergio Ramos has got them on. Now, I see more players wearing them, and I'm like, they don't look too bad, but they are quite a nice looking boot. All right, why football? That's the next question. Why was it football?
Yeah, so for me, that was never really a choice. It was my dad, an Italian father. It's, if you're a son, it's you're playing football. You have to be really, really bad for not playing football. And so yeah, ever since I was a kid, ever since I could walk, it was football.
Yeah, awesome. And going into it a bit further, you grew up in Denmark as well, and Denmark has got a very strong footballing nation, at least compared to Australia. Although actually beat Denmark in the World Cup. And I know that that's a bit of a funny one because when I was in Denmark, I was staying with all of my family friends who used to live in Australia. And this was just after we beat Denmark in the World Cup. And it's always Denmark versus Australia in the World Cup. And this was like the first time we ever beat Denmark. So we were so happy. And all the Danish people, of course, they're all kind, but they were all joking as if, the Australians. But we were happy. Next question. best holiday destination?
Uh, I'm living in Denmark, so I'm a little biased. So when I get to visit Italy, I'm very happy. I like the food, I like the culture, and of course, also I have family there. But aside from that, I will say I really I I've been enjoying actually this year in KL, where I've been traveling around in Southeast Asia. So it's like Indonesia, of course, Malaysia is a great place to also spend your holidays. There's a little bit of everything, to be honest.
Yeah, it would be very, very cool just traveling around Southeast Asia, I think. So for background on the other co-host, Val, he does some crazy away trips in Greece where they're going like on a overnight boat trip to one island to the next island. And it's like, how is that even allowed? Like they're doing like a flight, then a 10-hour bus trip, and then an overnight boat ride. And I'm thinking, how are they even training in between this to play an away game? Like some places, it's just crazy how football works. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Next question. What is the best place that you've lived? Now this kind of goes into the holiday thing even.
Yeah. It's an easy question. I mean, despite being from Copenhagen or I guess in Italy is also a nice place. I'm from the northern parts of Italy, but throughout my career, I would say for sure Kuala Lumpur. It's hot. It's modern. The food's amazing, and the city in general, it has everything. So for me, it's KL for sure.
That's really cool. Normally, I think most people that I know would say that they always want to live in Copenhagen. And I'm saying globally, if they had a choice to live anywhere, I actually hear a lot of the time Copenhagen. So I've got a friend who I do a few things with. He's also a footballer, and he's always talking about living in Denmark. It's his favorite place. He's actually from the UK, and it's not too far. So he always travels around Denmark. And when I was in Denmark, my sister, I kid you not, I think she wants to move there now. And I'm thinking, yeah, go for it. I mean, we all love Denmark, and
Yeah.
you go.
Oh, I do understand it. I think now that I've been out for a while, I do appreciate Denmark more. Been out for many years in general, like around, and I think when you're from there, you don't get to maybe appreciate all the great things. Denmark is it's a safe country. I'm not too much into the four seasons, so that's maybe why I gravitate a little away. But saying that, the city of Copenhagen, which is my home city, it's I do understand why people want to settle down in Denmark and in Copenhagen especially, for sure.
Yeah. How many years in total did you actually live in Denmark?
Almost all my life, honestly. It's been very occasionally little in Italy, but my despite my dad being Italian and my mom also speaking Italian, we've been almost all the time in Denmark. So it's only because of my football I've been away from Denmark and Copenhagen, really. But I will also say in Denmark, there are many nice cities, but for me, Copenhagen is very special.
Yeah, it is very nice. All right. The next question is, how old were you when you first started playing football?
I was, I think, 3 years old. I asked my dad once, and he said, it comes to a point where in Denmark, I think there's when you're a kid, it's like you just go out and you play, and I think my dad, he went to the local club a couple of times before. When can kids start? And when can kids start? And they're like, when they're 5. And my dad, he was not having it. He was not having it. So it's like at some point he just I think I could barely walk, right? And then just put me out there, and yeah, it's been nonstop ever since.
Yeah, that is actually crazy. I think you probably would have been able to kick a ball better than walking probably at that age.
Yeah. Also, I think some people will have an idea of it, but I really have to emphasize how crazy South European men are about football. It's one of those things. I saw some pictures from when I was born and everything, and it's just like, I think the day my father, he found out it's a son, then he knew it's all the toys has to be around somehow, right?
Yeah.
All the pictures of him finding a little spot of grass and just putting a ball and trying to tell you have to kick it, not grab it, and it's just
Yeah.
it's just I think it's that in the southern parts of Europe, that's just a dream for a father. When you get a son, gotta be a football player.
Yeah. Sure. I see that. I have a lot of Italian friends because in Australia there's heaps of Italians, and I actually don't know one Italian whose dad didn't make them play football for probably majority of their life. Like when you say that the Southern European dads are crazy with football, I can tell you they're crazy with football. Like, and
I even have a teammate now. I believe you maybe know him, Giancarlo. Giancarlo got a also. It's Australian born, but Italian, have Italian parents also.
Yeah.
And so he's Italian also. So it's the same for him.
Yeah.
It's like, you ask him, I'm sure he'll give you a very similar story. So
yeah. He actually, I never knew him personally, but he was at the Central Coast Mariners, which is the local team that is around me. And I had a lot of, so my neighbor, who is literally in the house behind me right now, he used to play at that team. And that's actually why I started football. A very different story to how you started football, because this is only 6 years ago when I started football. But yeah, it's in Australia, it's so different. And I don't even think that I'm like abnormal to be starting football that late. I think that there's quite a few people in Australia who would start football that late and then also make a professional career out of it. So it's really crazy. It is really crazy. But I will be fair, the Italians, they always start from early. They're the first ones on it. They always are. Yeah. All right, next question. What is your favorite thing to do outside of football?
I have I guess it is different things that I really enjoy doing. Because there's not one thing. I'm not really good at sitting still. So whether it's work on other projects that I've started, and that's something that really keeps me motivated and also keeps my mind active when I'm not playing football. So I'm not just sitting and playing computer or PlayStation. Engaging in different projects, starting different projects. That's something I really like to do. I really like being in the nature. I like hiking. I like just being outdoors. Really, traveling around and seeing new places that I maybe haven't seen before, and just sort of like figuring stuff out on the go. And I think that describes it quite well.
Yeah, awesome. And that probably ties in a little bit to the next topic, which is, what does an average day for Sebastian look like? Now, obviously, I now know what an average day looks like for you, but could you give a brief summary of what an average day for you looks like from the moment you wake up to the moment that you go to bed?
Well, the moment I wake up, the first thing I maybe I forgot to tell that last time. The first thing I'll do in the morning is I will start with gratitude. I have my prayers. That's the first thing. After that, that's very brief, and it's a good way to start the day. The first thing I will do is train. I need to go train. I need to move. I need to do it, and I need to do it every morning. If I have something I have to do 7 a.m., well, it's bad luck, Sebastian. Then I guess it's 5:20. Because that I need that for everything, for my well-being, for my productivity, my energy. So that's a non-negotiable. It is the training first. After the training, for instance, this week I train first. I go up, I eat my breakfast. I see my schedule. I always schedule my day usually in the Sundays, and I just look it through the day before, and then I will start going to work. That's mostly how it goes. In the evening, what I like to do again, if I have the time, I will go to the gym once again. And then it's maybe just some stretching. But I do believe that accumulated all those small things, the training, morning and in the evening, even if it's just like 45 minutes here, 45 minutes there, I believe that consistency is something that I value a lot in my life.
Yeah, sure. It's a big thing. Now tell me two things. Why do you train in the morning, first thing, when you wake up? And secondly, what time is your team training sessions in season?
So the first question is when I
Why do you wake up?
why?
And train first thing.
I believe in the morning, that's when your brain is like a sponge. So if the first thing you do is scrolling on the phone, you've set yourself up for that slight little hint of dopamine, really. For me, what I want to do is really just get it started right. Maybe I don't feel like training, as honestly most of the days I don't feel like training. But doing that, I set myself up for success every time. I know that. Even if I'm not successful during the day, I set myself up for it. That's really, really important. And I believe that is one of those things that's within my control. It's to start right, to set up it's like a software, set it up correctly from the beginning. So when the computer starts, then you start it properly. And yeah, during the season, my training schedule is every day I will train 8 a.m., which means I'll be at the stadium at latest 7:30. So if I wanna do my things, and I don't of course go to the gym before my team training. So in season I will go to training, obviously, and then I'll have another session in the evening. So I always have 2 sessions during the day.
Yeah, awesome. And what I was going to say, and what you finished with then, completely complements what I'm going to say now. Footballers, I think, if we have a similar character, which most footballers do, we start to use words, we start to do all these things without commonly agreeing upon them, but we start doing them. I'll give you 2 examples. When I was editing the video before to send to you, I saw that you had an aura ring. And
yeah.
I used to have Whoop. You can see right now I've got nothing on. Long story short, Whoop was revolutionary for me. And then that always set my day up better, right? Footballers, I also heard you use the word non-negotiable. Now, this is such a big thing, I think, for all footballers, and also for anyone who just wants to get better, right? Having these standards is very important. And I think anybody who wants to get better will naturally filter into these mechanisms, into these habits, into all these different ways of getting better. And I see this commonly with footballers, of course, because, that's my life as well. But I do think because football is so competitive, you would know, football is very competitive. We have to do everything to survive, right? The 1% details truly, truly matter at the very top. Now, going into your training routine, you also mentioned 2 sessions a day, right? That's what you aim for. What does that look like in season, and what does that look like off season? Is there much of a difference in terms of energy expenditure, in duration, in X, Y, and Z? Is there any difference?
Yes, but also I've heard so many different views. I, for instance, have a lot of I guess friends within let's say the Premier League who will train one way, and I will have my ways. I believe that regardless of where I'm at now, I'm off season, but of course the energy spent will be bigger. But for instance, I don't believe in weight training. I don't believe in weight training for football players. I see a lot of football players, they are squatting a whole lot, they are lifting a whole lot of weights, and it's not. I don't believe it's good for your joints. I don't believe it's good for your muscles. And I train very intense, especially now, and it's a lot of much more. I would say I like to train for more without like. I just want it to somehow simulate like a football game. I'm playing for 90 minutes. I don't need to lift for my chest, and if I want, I can do some push-ups, and I can activate my core. I wanna be strong. I wanna be functional, and I believe that's one big thing I do different. And I think in general in football, I believe that's the future. I think it's outdated the way we work out, and that's one thing I'm very concerned about every year, whether it's off season, whether it's in season. In season, my work schedule for my fitness is much more stretching. It's much more focused on preventing injuries. So it's all those small things, and so far I've been very successful with these things in my life. But it's, again, I don't want to do it, but I know I have to do it every day, and then I always make sure that I get a little bit of a cardio involved, and it's very rare that I run. Very rare.
Really? Okay, interesting. I really liked the opinion on the weight training, because so for context on my situation, right? I haven't been in the gym for 6 months. This is the longest I've ever been out of the gym, because I had recently in September I had a surgery, non-football related. I've never had a football related injury in the past 5 years, other than a fractured wrist, which because someone kicked the ball at my wrist, and of course, if it's close enough and it's hard enough, it's going to break. As much as that is football related, it's not due to muscles or whatever. It's just a freak accident. I think, looking at your physique, looking at how strong you are naturally, of course, you may have done some work before, but I'd love to know why you have the belief around that, because we speak with strength and conditioning coaches from Everton. We speak with all these different strength and conditioning coaches from Premier League clubs, and as you said, it could be outdated, but the biggest teams in the world still do it. So why did you come to that opinion?
So I think there's one thing that is a lot of theory. You can read a lot, and I know I'll never question the people's education or whatever. But I think many people tend to overlook the experience. And so when I was 23, I got signed for a big club in Denmark. I weighed 84 kilos. I am 184 centimeters tall. So it was a lot. I didn't have any fat. I was very big. And just to give you some numbers, my average, for instance, and I know this is not how you measure success, but my average in a game for 90 minutes, I would run back then I was actually more of a winger, but it was 10.6 kilometers a game. And I did my best. I really tried to run. I'm always seeing myself as a hardworking player. Today I can say I'm obviously the same height, but I weigh 76 kilos. So
Wow.
and I didn't have any fat back then.
Yeah.
What changed for me was I got a very, very good PT in Denmark. I'm still using, who had exactly a different opinion of how football play should work. And I know now he's a consultant for a lot of Premier League clubs. It's quite interesting. But that functional training for athletes completely changed my physique. And today I am by far the player in the Malaysian league who will run the most also. I can now average almost 12. And not saying I have to, because maybe this game only demands me to run, 10 and a half. And then maybe that'll be the case. But it's just to say I have the capacity. I think also one of the things that I didn't do a lot back then, my training always simulates endurance now. Endurance. I'm a football player. I'm not a powerlifter. I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm an athlete. And I need to compete for 90 minutes. I need to be able to even do it for 120 minutes. And I don't like when I see in the pre-seasons, I see so many players every year. They are lifting, they are working hard, and they're doing what they're told. They will squat, they will do Nordic hamstrings, they will do anything for their body, and then they sprint, the calf, the thigh, something.
ACL.
Yeah, even that, but maybe the muscular injuries at least. That's when I see the weight training. Oh, sure, this is a good idea. And what is it actually we train the muscles for? I don't know. I cannot say from a theoretical standpoint why, but I've played now for so many years. I started working out when I was 15. I was late developed, so I felt like, okay, I have to go to the gym. So that's why I also eventually gained too many kilos. But looking in hindsight, that's one of my takeaways when it comes to physique. You're going to need to see, like, let's take the prime example. If you look at Ronaldo's physique when he suddenly just started to bulk up, and you look at how lean he is now, he doesn't train the same way anymore. You can see that he's much slimmer. He's much more. His physique looks much more balanced,
refined, I think. Yeah.
And I don't know.
It's a very interesting point.
I don't know if it's just the same realization I came to, but for myself, and I needed that person in my life to sort of like give me that knowledge. And I'm so sorry to say this for the clubs, I guess, but sometimes this information that they have, that's just been passed down from another generation who got it from somebody else, and nobody really questions it.
Yeah, you are definitely onto, like, we do have that perception, right? And I think, honestly, I've seen a few people actually explain how the weight training could be hindering rather than actually helping. And there's a guy on Instagram who talks about it a lot. I think I follow him on the podcast Instagram, and I see some of the stuff he does. And I've got a few actually people on LinkedIn as well. And it's definitely an interesting one, because is it whether it's not necessarily you stop the weight training and you do a different type of training, or you just scrap it completely? Well, what do you do? Do you still do stuff in the gym, do band work, whether it's sleds? What for stuff do you do?
So, for instance, my best friend is a TRX, and I have, of course, the bands. So I use a lot of weight. It's just not like in traditional way. So I use the TRXs, which is often core training. I just still do my versions of squats and lunges, but I always make it functional. I'm never really isolating one little muscle and pumping. I try to incorporate also exercises for my joints. So so I can, sometimes you will twist your ankle a little here and there. It's my job to keep them strong. And I always make, for every workout I have, my core is always a focus. Maybe I can today I'll do a little more for my legs, and next day there will be a little more upper body involved, but it's never with weights really. And if there is, it's small weights, and then I use them in a sequence in a way. So there's always this element of, if I'm, for instance, now in off season where I'm fatiguing, where I will grasp for air, like get a little bit of that, because I am a football player. I'm not a bodybuilder.
Yeah, I love the emphasis on that, because when you think about it and you see, I mean, I think I've seen a joke about Messi touching like weight. You never see it. And then I saw this one video, and it was Messi like doing, like, I think it was at PSG, and he like lifts like one dumbbell in his right arm, and it looks like a joke. Like it looks fake. And going on top of that as well. So my neighbor, same guy who made me start playing football, I believe that actually when he went to a club in Australia, he moved from my local club to the next club. And he probably was like you, where he had so much muscle, and he was, I think, 86 kilograms and probably the same height. But I think his body fat was probably 8 or 9%. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I think this guy had a background of his dad was a famous rugby player, his brother was a famous rugby player, and his sister was a famous netball player. So they were just all athletes. And a part of him joining this new team, he actually had to lose 5 kilograms in, I think, a month. Now, that's ridiculous, because where's he going to lose that weight from, right? He's going to have to lose it from muscle, because he's got no fat to lose. So that is also maybe people are starting to change around that narrative, right? Because as footballers, as you said, right, the emphasis on we're footballers, not an athlete who is a footballer. We are footballers, and it's a very interesting point. Now, it also brings me perfectly onto the next topic, which is going onto where in your football career have you started to change doing different things? Because I would imagine the day that you had when you were 17 years old and the day that the Sebastian has today would look very different. So where was that change from when you were a young kid playing football to where you are now?
I think it's difficult because there's a lot of, I guess, really defining moments in an athlete's career. That right person often comes along at some point and changes everything for you. I had my first really, really, really important encounter when I must have been 22. I got a very late breakthrough as a football player. I had this dream my whole life, but for some reason I couldn't really. Everybody had this perception that Sebastian's a talented player. For some reason, I was trained well. I did the right things, but I couldn't really get it out. And and I didn't get that in Europe. It's like if you don't have the breakthrough quite early, it's will he make it? Because there'll be somebody who's younger and better. And so, for me, what eventually happened was that when I was 22, I was just I was dumped in a club, and I didn't really get any playing time. This was in the third division in Denmark, and I had an old coach from way back who called another coach in that league and asked if I could come to try out. So I get this phone call from that coach who asked me, "You can come to our tryouts, but I'm just telling you, we have a really strong team. You're most likely not gonna make it." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, sure." And then he asked me, "Which position do you play?" And I just thought, if I am to have a chance, I'm gonna have to play the position he wants me to. So I just asked, which positions do you need?" And said, "We really need a left fullback." And I just said, "Okay, I'm a left fullback." And I got into the club like that. Now,
Wow.
what really is quite amazing now, this coach turned out to be, in the best way possible, crazy. Because, of course, it took him 2 minutes. He saw he's not a left fullback. He's right-footed. He's not defending. He's and he just loved that I had the balls and the courage to go and wanted it so bad that I was willing to lie to get into the team. And that was the first. He took away that thing that blocked me throughout my late teen years and my start 20s was this extreme fear of failure, this extreme fear of not being good enough, this habit I think a lot of footballers can relate to, where you're pleasing a lot of like a coach, like some of the more established players in the team. And I got to an environment where there's none of that. They just wanted me to relax. And yeah, a year later, I was the player of the year in that league, and as a left fullback. And then I went straight to the best league in Denmark. And that's how fast it can go. That was the first encounter I had where, okay, this really changed my me as a player. And to this day, it's when I look at me as a football player, I can change here and there. I can become better at this or maybe adjust this. But going back to the core essence, I know that what he taught me, what he always demanded, that his players, they need to always want the ball. And I was in a place in life where I was super scared of having the ball. Maybe too much. I took too much in. I was too easy to affect from my external environment, and that really changed me as a player. And to this day, it has set the foundation for me having a football career for sure.
That's an amazing story. It's really, really amazing. It's very interesting to hear. 22 years old, playing in the third division of Danish football, because from memory, right, they don't even classify the second division as professional in Denmark. Although I believe it is. I've got friends who play in that division, and I've also got friends who play in the third division, and I know the standard is good. But I think, is that right? The second division isn't actually classified as a professional league.
So the best league obviously is the second best league now in Denmark is professional now, all of them.
Okay.
The third best league, there are a few full-time teams, some part-time, and some not a lot of amateurs. Everybody's paid. But
Yeah.
back then this team I went to was a promoted club to the third league. I didn't make a dime.
Oh wow.
There. It was nothing. I got nothing.
Yeah.
So it's and yeah, and when you're not young, I turned after that year I was 23, and I remember always having this feeling that I was behind. I'm falling behind. Like the others, they're already here and there, and suddenly I found myself in a really good position, just like in a year. And since then, I've had so many setbacks. Also, COVID came. I decided to move to the Faroe Islands at that point, because football was suspended, and I wanted to play, and I think I was a little tired of everything. I think COVID did some things to us, but yeah, I found out that I really loved playing football when I was up there, and I came back, went to a team in the second best league, and this time, same thing as when I went to the club in the third best league. They said, we need a defensive midfielder. And I said, sure, I'll do that. And a year later, had a really strong season, and then get going again. I always knew that I have this belief now in myself that wherever I go, in football, it's not just about whether you're good enough. I have a belief I am good enough, but I also know now that this is not tennis. In tennis, you know you're gonna play. In tennis, you can have you will play. And you have a coach, but the coach has to pick you. It's not like he can put you on the bench, and it's not like he can say maybe you're bad for the team in one way or another. In football, there's a lot of other circumstances, and that's why there's a little luck involved. There's a little there's so many different things, but what we can do is continue. And I knew that from getting my breakthrough or my debut in professionally very, very late, that even to this day, I still believe that. So when I have less good periods, I guess it's still the same. I know it can change, like from like 0 to 100 in very short time.
Amazing. That brings up two questions for me, and the first one is that switch that you had going from the third division to the first division, and you said that was more of a mental thing for you, because going from the third division to first division, physically and skill wise, that's a big jump. But you're saying that for you, that bridge was the mental side. Did you explicitly work on the mental side there?
I believe I always have. But it's also it's not like working on your bicep. Your brain is complex. It comes with experience. It comes with, again, the right people. Today we have access to so much information, but like really putting that into use in our life is difficult. It's not easy.
Yeah.
So I will say that I'm lucky that I had a mentor from I was 15, a really, really good mentor, who I always could spar with regarding the mental struggles of being an athlete. But even though he's in my opinion, he's maybe one of the best in the whole world to do that, I wasn't prepared to really put it into use until I hit a certain age. So it's not that you can just put it in there and then now I got it. It doesn't work like that. It's different. The only thing we have to do, and that is to keep going, because if you stop, that's when you'll never really reap all the benefits of that knowledge or that information. Because up until that, it's just information. In this world, we can just say things because we've read it and then we can sound like experts. But it's when you internalize that information, you put it into use, you try it for yourself over a course of time, and you maybe start to teach others. That's when you can go that full circle about learning something. But you'll never do that if you stop halfway or three quarters down the way. It's just work like that. You never know what's in front of you, even if you think that, this is not going anywhere. Okay, you've decided that. It's not an objective truth. You've decided.
It's a brilliant mentality to have. I think that someone who's got a story like you, if let's say Ronaldo says that, we're going to have less of a hard time believing it, because it's like, people have this conception of Ronaldo that everything was given to him on a silver platter. It's definitely not the situation that happened, but it's evident that you went through this struggle. Now, I'm not saying Ronaldo didn't, because I'm sure he went through struggles, but when we see the perception of people and the things that they go through, you've really got a true testament for what you've just said there. And I speak about it on LinkedIn a bit, actually. I think I made a post maybe a month ago saying, like, why is it that someone will get paid $1 million for saying something? Like, let's say, bringing it back to when I was with you last time, and I said Tim Grover, this guy, he gets paid millions to speak in front of people. But if I was to then say that, I copy and pasted his speech, I wouldn't get paid a cent for it. Why is it? It's because he's actually lived it. He's actually got the validity to do it. Exactly what you said. Information is everywhere. But when we actually apply it, that is when we're able to start saying things, and people start saying, oh, he actually did it. People start to listen. And this is where your story is a true testament to it. And I really hope that I'll be able to do the exact same. I mean, I think that my story, it's ups and down, but I think we have a similar attitude here, and exactly what you said at the end there. It's like, if you quit, you won't succeed. But if you keep going, you've got more chance of getting there, because when you quit, it's a full stop. And this is a really, really deep question that I want to ask you, but it requires a lot of self-reflection in terms of looking back at past years. But have you always had that attitude to where, if I don't quit, I've got more chance of getting it? Or was that a real struggle for you to develop that attitude?
I think when you're a kid, it comes down to the values you've been raised with. From my household, I didn't have the option to quit. I've wanted to quit so many times, and maybe I've even said it out loud. Mom, I'm gonna quit today. No, you're not. And like I told you, for instance, I will answer your question by saying the reason why I train every day is for that exact same reason. When you incorporate good habits into your life, when you start doing the small things for you, you start to build a narrative. I am who I say I am. I am good enough. I am strong enough. That discipline is eventually the answer to that question. That builds the character. That slow growth in any part of your life where you just consistently devote time every day. That gives you the belief that, yes, I can do this. I can do this. But problem is, we want to figure out when, and that's not up to us. We don't know when. And everybody has a timeline. Oh, but by I'm 22, I'm playing in the best league in Spain. By I'm 25, I'm playing in Real Madrid, and by 28, I have a Ballon d'Or. And sure, it's okay if you like to do that. And I'm not saying I am an advocate for goal setting, but you have to understand when you're living life, your job is not to figure out when you're receiving anything. Your job is to work hard, be gracious in defeat, and if you're victorious, if you're successful, always keep your head down and keep those habits up, because those habits are what's gonna, when you're having those doubtful moments, that's essentially is gonna say, nah, I've invested way too much into this to just because I had a bad week or bad month to say, oh no, this is not for me. No, that's the problem. Is if you start to, I guess, stop living your life, stop doing your best. A lot of football players, you can see when they're not playing, they start to get really bad habits. They start to go out more. They start to stay up late, slacking on all those small things. And maybe even if you do, you will still be successful. Maybe, but it's just you've already compromised now on those principles. You've already compromised. That means you can do it again. So that's my biggest fear.
Yeah.
I don't want to compromise on any of my principles because I know there will be bad times again. I know, but I know if I cannot work hard when I'm doing good, and then also I cannot work out when I'm doing bad. Then at some point, yeah, I will start cheat, and I'm not cheating anybody. I'm just cheating myself, and that's what's gonna leave me in a place where my attitude will not be constant. It'll be easily affected, and it depends. Yeah, however I feel in the morning, I guess then.
Sebastian, I had to take down so many notes there. I hope you don't mind, because my mind was just coming up with so many questions, and I'm like, that's exactly what I was thinking 5 minutes ago. Like, I've got so many things written down here, and it tied in perfectly to one like really big question that I had to, which tied into another question that I previously asked, which was the things that you said about the belief that you had in yourself. Now, I also have this, what I call delusional beliefs, and I say it's like purposeful delusion, but it's delusion to other people, but to me, it's like, it just makes sense because you align your actions with your words. And I think exactly what you're saying there, if anyone in the world is able to align their beliefs with their actions, it's you, because you've done it. Other people, when they do these positive affirmations, they look in the mirror and say, Nick, I'm going to be the best looking today, and I'm going to go and earn millions of dollars. But then they go and do everything that they've been doing previously, and they're not going to earn millions, and they're not going to look good. Like, you actually did everything it takes to get there and said that. Therefore, you're just reaffirming your beliefs. And I think that's very commendable. And that's what I try and teach with the sculpted message. The 3 pillars is the 3 things that you live by and pride yourself in. And aligning your actions with your words, it's so crucial. And people do it and they say it, but sometimes they're not aware of it. And when you are aware of it and you reflect on it, which I remember in the last episode we spoke about, where Sundays you're talking about all these things in your week, journal, whatnot. This is so important. And what you said about the working part of it is doing hard things. You mentioned that you hate training. I literally made an episode about this, I think in between from when we gave the first episode ago and to this episode today, is I gave a comparison to the hardest moment in my life. And I then gave a comparison to that training session that morning. And I said, the hardest moment in my life probably doesn't even outweigh the mental battle that I had to go through to go and train, because I really didn't want to train. And I kept on compromising with myself. I was like, okay, Nick, you got up early. You're feeling sore. I only need to do 45 minutes. And whenever I have these thoughts, I always make sure I do 30 minutes more, because I'm like, that feeling that you get when you do something hard and you do it well, I'm sure you know this feeling. It's the best feeling in the world. And I made a episode strictly about that. And then the other thing you mentioned was aligned with that and what I thought about that. And just before we started recording, I just finished my second session for the day. And it was, my dad said something, and I was like, who's going to work for me when I'm not working? No one's going to work for me when I'm not working. So this is something that I see in you. You're working hard because you know that if anyone is, I gave an analogy with the sculpted analogy is, everyone is sculpting their own life in a rock. Right now, you're sculpting your life. And imagine if I came over to you and I started sculpting your rock, how would you feel? You'd probably be pissed off. And even if I was doing the right thing, I think you would rather me never ever touch it, even if I was doing the right thing, because you know that your results are your fault. And like we were saying before with, and sorry, I am rambling a little bit here, but you invoked so many great topics. You talked about how there's so much information, and the best, a sculptor like myself, I may know everything to do, but I can't do it because I haven't lived these valuable experiences. And this is what you were talking about. Your results are your fault, and you are okay with it. Good, bad, and the ugly. And this is something that I really, really see, and it kind of ties into what I was saying before. Footballers, I think a lot of footballers have this, but I think with you, if anyone's qualified to speak about it, it's you, because you've done it. Now, sorry about that. That I went so
That's
so off topic, and I rambled on for way too long. But I loved what you said there. Going on to though, how you have improved in your football journey, right? You just speaking about what we've spoken about now. That's a lot of things to come with. How do you now today? How does Sebastian try and improve every single day?
I believe it starts with the foundation. I think in everything I do, whether it's, let's stick to football for now, but it can be anything, whether it's in businesses, it's whether in whatever I'm doing. I believe it starts with the foundation. The foundation is what can you control, what can you not. I know for myself what I can control is my attitude, my actions, my effort, my body language. These things I can control that. And I believe I told you this last time. I live by this very principle every day in my life. It's very important to me that whatever I do, I always perform 6 out of 10. Always 6 out of 10. If I do that, then I know I've always held that consistency. So if I'm at my worst day, I'm a 6. That consistency is still gonna add up in the end. And I believe that foundation, that is the cornerstone of my development as a human being and as a football player. Because as you keep performing that 6 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 6 out of 10, or at least 6 out of 10, then suddenly you start to raise to 6.3, 6.4, 6.5. And slowly, that's where you grow. You don't grow from racing from the top. If you can hit a 10 out of 10, it's amazing. I congratulate you. It's amazing. But if you on your worst day are a 2 out of 10, then that's where your growth is. And I always believe that I raise my foundation every day. So I raise my standard, and I don't try to raise my my top performance, because you know what? I played a full season now. I will believe I don't have a single 9 or 10 out of 10 performance, but I have the most games, and I don't know if I have the highest average, but I believe I will be up there. And I think that's where I see a lot of people slightly maybe having their focus in the wrong place, because growth has to happen from your foundation, and that's what you can control.
I remember when I said this last time, I loved the 6 out of 10, and I wanted to say something on top of that, which I had thought about on top of that, which was, if I was to aim to be something that I'm not every single day, then I'm going to end up doing worse than what I would get at knowing what I can do. So, for example, if I was to aim for a 10 out of 10 every single time, statistically, that is impossible. Humans, we are flawed, right? There will always be an error or something that makes us even a 9.9. So aiming for a 10 out of 10 every single game is going to be impossible. And the 6 out of 10, you said it really succinctly there, which was perfect, because I think when we spoke about it last time, we went on a bit, but what you said there was perfect. That compound of just focusing on the 6 out of 10 and just improving. Because what you said was, a coach of yours previously, he told all of you guys, all the players, that the difference between you and Messi, it's nothing massive. It's a few percent. And that's what that 6 out of 10 is. And now I don't believe you're a 6 out of 10 the way you're playing. You're probably 8s or 7s or whatever that is. But for someone just starting off, maybe Sebastian 6 years ago, maybe that was the 6s. But now, refining, getting better, working that chisel on the sculpture, that's how you improve. And I really, really love that point.
Yeah, it's like a marathon run. If you start sprinting right away, yeah, he's really fast in the first 5 minutes, but he has 38 kilometers left. And I'm just saying that it's a way of thinking, and I think a lot of people could benefit from thinking about what's inside of my control. How can I perform on these criterias, instead of how many goals did I score, how many this and that. There's so many of those that it's variables, and you can't control it. And trust me, if you manage to always consistently deliver at least 6 out of 10, yeah, sometimes you'll hit a 9, sometimes you'll hit a 7, maybe a 10, maybe like, yeah, but you never sink below that 6. And 6 is still an over average performance. And but of course, if you're reckless in your, one thing is being brave, another thing is being reckless. You can be passive, you can be brave, courageous, and you can be reckless. So if you are to go for that 10 out of 10 performance in whatever you do, you have to take a lot of risk. You're out of balance. Maybe you hit it, maybe you get it right, but you have to do it again tomorrow, and then you didn't get it right, and now you messed up. So it's a balance, and it's a discipline that we humans can never necessarily get 100% right, but we can improve every day.
It's also a really good point that how do we even measure a 6 out of 10? We actually can't really measure a 6 out of 10. Of course, we've got our stats and whatnot, but it's a very, very hard thing to actually measure. Now, what I want to quickly touch on is the religious aspect. Now, I remember when we were closing, you mentioned, I believe it was you grew up in a Catholic household. Is that right? Yeah. So I think that there's been a recent boom in people being more comfortable with talking about their religion, and I'll be the first one to say, yeah, because more people are speaking about it, I'm more comfortable to speak about it myself as well. And also, it comes as I grow older. But there's even a stat with wars and whatnot, with uncertainty, people become more religious, and it's definitely something that I see is much more prevalent today. So what I want to go into that is, I believe that in your career you've dealt with so much uncertainty. What aspect and role did religion have to play with that?
I believe that it somehow it emphasizes what you should try to control and understand, and what you shouldn't. There's a lot of uncertainty if you want to become an athlete, yeah, especially in football. There's uncertainty all the time. For instance, for myself, I'm out of contract now. I don't know, and I could get an offer tomorrow, and I could take it, and maybe it's the wrong one. So I was desperate when I took it. So I believe that religion plays a role, and it teaches us to understand our feelings, our thoughts, in a way. And there's this, and I don't, again, I'm not one to say what's right and what's wrong. That's not what I'm doing with religion. I'm an advocate for every religion. They're beautiful, but I don't try to understand everything in this world. I'm unable to, and so are any other human being. So me understanding that I just have to be faithful. I live by principles in my life. I try to be disciplined. I try to be brave. I try to be wise in my life. I treat others fair and well. There's just some cornerstones in religion that can help you as a guideline in life. And both also when you're at your low, where people tend to gravitate towards religion, it also helps you. And that's also another test to when you're successful. How do you deal with it? Are you still gonna be faithful, or do you lose your humility in life? And I think religion, whether it's Islam, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's Christianity, doesn't matter. There's so many beautiful passages in religion, and I believe that this we can call it like a spiritual awakening going on around the world. Really emphasizes a lot of the, I guess, lost values and guidelines that human beings are supposed to have in this life, because we've dealt with a pandemic, we have wars going on, and we tend to believe that religion is the problem. In my opinion, it's not. Religion is not the problem. It's because religion can be interpreted by human beings. So it's the way humans interpret religion that unfortunately causes issues. But for me as an athlete, it helps me being grounded. It helps me to wait and to not be and not act in desperation, because I know that's not what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, I really love the point there. How it's, I mean, fundamentally, religion is always going to be a net positive, I believe, and I think you are right with how the interpretation is the flaw, not the religion itself. Now, dealing with those uncertainties, I love the point where you're talking about sometimes you just don't need to worry about specific things because they're out of your control. And I've been there many a time. And I think that through these tough times as well, you kind of have to lean on it because it's like, well, it's like so far out of my control, and it could be making my career, it could be breaking my career. But all I can do is rely on the work I've done previously up until this day, and then the rest of it is out of my control. And that's where I think religion is very powerful. But also the other thing is what I believe is that you also can't just forget about the religion after you've got through a tough time, because trust me, the tough times are going to come again. And also there's so much beauty in being in the good times as well. And we take granted these specific things, and it ties back into what you talked about with your gratitude, and when you wake up, you're grateful. I love that as well. Before we close off into the last questions for you, Sebastian, I want to quickly go on to your latest venture in business. Can you give us a bit of a definition of what you're doing right now, and then an introduction to what you're doing?
Yeah, so I recently embarked on a new venture. It's called Icebox Recovery, and the whole concept is to make a cold water like ice baths more accessible for not just athletes, because a lot of athletes are used to ice baths for recovery purposes, physical recovery purposes. But now, especially in the European countries, I imagine, and in the West in general, it's become much more mainstream, and the benefits, especially mentally, has been much more documented. And so I started this journey a couple of months ago, and where I really hope to go with this is to create the world's biggest and most influential recovery brand in the world.
It's amazing. It's a very cool thing when you see athletes doing businesses, I think, because it's leveraging that social proof. Because as I said, like, if I was to say and repeat the words of someone who has said something before me, who am I to say it? They say it and people listen. This is something that you've done before. People listen. And I think it's a very, very cool thing. So I'm very excited to see where that goes. And I mean, I think last time when I spoke to you as well, I was saying how I've got mine. I was actually in it just before we came in. And yeah, I think it's such a great tool to have. And it's also, you've got the portable one, right? So
yeah, so this one is a portable recovery top. It's basically for anyone to get started on the journey, and obviously we have much more in the pipeline to go. But for now, it's also about really wanting to promote and facilitate wellness and lifestyle and health in general. That's through cold water. It's if people haven't really tried it before, it's a great way to also build a resilient mind. We've talked a lot about the mind today and the brain today, and unfortunately in this world, because we are so comfortable, we don't have to be uncomfortable in our lives. And why would you be uncomfortable, you may ask? But that's not how we're supposed to live as human beings. We need to be uncomfortable sometimes, also to really appreciate being comfortable. And it builds more resilience to do things you don't like to do. And I definitely don't want to go into cold water. And I don't know a lot of people who really loves it. And I've heard say, I love ice baths. Yeah, you love the benefits of it. You don't really love to sit down in the cold water. But it's a great test to the mind. This comes with a lot of benefits, and whether you're an athlete or not, it's not important. So it's really for everybody to try it, I think.
Yeah, I love it. It's I think, as you said, it's becoming more mainstream, and people are seeing the benefits of it. And you're spot on when you say people are so comfortable. And I do believe that the awareness that you have on comfort comes from your reflection of gratitude. I think it's something that I notice when I also I don't have an explicit gratitude journal. It's just in my journal where I write down things that I am grateful for, which sounds like a gratitude journal, but it's just mixed in there. And I've been doing it for maybe a year now, and I put things into perspective, and I'm like, wow, I could be in the front lines of a war right now. That's where I would be with my age, but I'm not, and I take for granted every single day that I have. It just puts into perspective how lucky we are, and then it's like, well, who am I to just be comfortable all my life? I almost owe it to the world to be uncomfortable, because so many people are comfortable. And it's such an amazing thing, because ice baths are the entry point, I think. And like you said, right, the ice bath for you is probably easier than doing a training session, but it's that entry point for so many people. And that's where I think it's going to be a very, very exciting venture for you to explore that some more.
Yeah, it's the same as we talked about the training in the morning. It's that compounding effect of good habits done consistently over a course of time. It's going to compound, and it's setting yourself up for success. And some people think like, how do I become successful by going into an ice bath? You know what? I don't even want to like explain why. It's more like good habits. That's eventually what will lead people to the idea of success. And whether it's financially, whether it's within sports, or it's within their job, or as a parent, or whatever, those good habits is what's gonna make you run all the way, like over the finish line. And that's why I want to advocate and raise some awareness on a good habit and how I can make a difference in people's life.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Now, aware of the time, I wanted to finish off with the last question that we have for all of our guests. Now, what are 3 ways that you sculpt yourself every single day?
3 ways I sculpt myself. Can you
So, in terms of getting better and improving, so for me, my journal is a big part of how I get better. So reflection, I make sure that today is going to be better tomorrow because of today. It could be the meditation, it could be the gratitude journal, it could be your training. So sculpting yourself to get better every single day. 3 ways that you do that.
3 ways. I think a lot of it is just, again, maintaining a high standard in everything I do. I don't necessarily think too much about like how much better I get. I just know that if I set a high standard for myself, I'm gonna get better. And maybe when you look a year back in your life, then you can really see, oh, I really moved the needle this year. So it's again all the small habits in life. I can't say something specific, where it's like I can't say it's the journaling, I can't say it's the praying, I can't say it's the training. It's compounding. It's not. I don't see them isolated like that. It's again setting a standard that's high in terms of habits, and always or never compromising on those habits. For instance, when I say the training in the morning, really prioritizing that, because we can just do it in numbers. If you have a full year and you manage to work out, let's say 300 days out of a full year, then you've already worked out a lot. And compared to one who doesn't work out, well, over a year you would see the difference. And that's in all the small things. It's all the habits. It's whether you drink or smoke. It's in general, how you eat, your sleep, your circle of friends. That's how I make a sort of like a setting for myself. That's what I want in my life, and that's what I'm gonna perform on, and I'm not compromising on that. So for me, it could be, for instance, I chose, and I don't say anybody else should do that, but I'm not drinking, for instance. The reason why I'm not drinking is not because of religious or any other things, that there's nobody who tells me I can't drink. It's just one of those things where I feel like, okay, that's one way I can do better. And also one thing I will share about myself, and I don't know whether this is very common, but for me, I don't. And then now I'm so sorry. I know we're done, but it's like it's one of those things where I hear a lot of people today talk about, like, we have a lot of stress, we have anxiety, and we tend to think of it in a very bad way, like, oh yeah, stress and anxiety is very, very bad. But one thing about me that I have another perspective in it. I think everybody has stress and everybody has some sort of anxiety in some ways. My biggest insecurity and anxiety is also I have a crippling anxiety that I'm not good enough. that is exactly why I need to work so hard every day. I use that anxiety to improve every single day because I'm afraid I'm not good enough. So doing that, using that anxiety, instead of sitting and trying to cure myself from being anxious, well, it's a feeling. Congratulations. Like, you'll be happy sometimes. You will also feel anxious. And that's one thing also I will say while we're here, that sometimes those feelings are the most motivating. That you are feeling anxious, that you are feeling scared. And that's also one way when I sculpt my success or my over a year. I know one of my biggest drivers, actually the biggest driver, is my crippling anxiety that I'm not good enough. And it has to be that it's meant in the best way possible, because I know it's a part of the equation. I need that to keep going in anything in life, really.
Yeah, that was amazing. I love that, and I do relate to that, which is it's a bit of a crazy thing. Hey, that it's like an insecurity could be used for a good thing, and it could be such a big reason for action. And I don't have an issue with it, and I don't think you have a massive issue with it at all. And maybe it's a controversial thing for people to hear, but it works for you. It's been working for me. Let's keep going with it, Let's keep going with it. And I also like how I think you frame things as the world's your library, whether it's icebox that you're doing, it's going to help you with football. Whether it's the strength work that you do, it's going to help you with football. Whether it's the X, Y, Z, everything you do is to help you become a better player or just a better person. I always try and become a better Nicholas Cradfield every single day, and I'm sure that you try and become a better Sebastian Avanzini every single day. And that's what I call sculpting, right? That's the analogy of using the chisel. So it's it's crazy. It's a crazy life, and we touched on so many different things about how it's in here. It's in here. And I love to see the accountability that you've got. I love to see all these amazing attributes in yourself. And that's why I love sitting down with footballers, right? Because I get to pick your brain, and then the listeners are able to see this is what it's like to be a professional footballer. This is what it takes, because so many people, they don't know what it takes. And I love how you opened up and you explain all of these different things. No one thinks that a professional footballer like yourself, their biggest insecurity is it's massive. It's massive, but that's also probably one of their biggest strengths. No one really thinks about that. And it's amazing to hear that from yourself. So Sebastian, thank you so much for hopping on and sharing everything, being an open book. I'm sure that all of the listeners will appreciate it. I appreciate it. But yeah, what an episode. I really, really appreciate your time again.
Of course, man. It's my pleasure, and I'm happy that hopefully we got it right this time. So, hey, so
I really, really hope so. I really hope so.